What's up, guys? Python here, back with another video. And today, let's break down the Peter Laviolette press conference as we'll talk about some takeaways we can maybe get from it. Right off the rip, I will say love everything that I heard come out of Peter Laviolette's mouth. I didn't hear one bad thing. But with that said, we're going to be cautiously optimistic here because of the fact that we remember what Gerard Gallant said about playing guys like Kaka and Lafreniere in the top six, then proceeding to bury them in the bottom six, sometimes even on the fourth line, sometimes sitting in the press box as a healthy scratch. Like my co-host Nico just tweeted a few minutes ago, actions speak louder than words. That goes for the entire press conference when he talked about the fact that he wants them to compete, when he's talking about how he wants them to play playoff hockey from day one. All of it, we have to be cautiously optimistic here and realize it's just words at the end of the day. And he's going to say all the right things, or for the most part, the right things during a press conference. That's just the way that it goes. That's just the way that he's taught. That's just the way that he is, being around the block for 26 years. It's expected that he's going to say the right things, but it's a matter of execution now. It's a matter of going out there and showing us, showing the world, showing the NHL, showing the league that we're not messing around here, and let's go. Let's actually get to work, because those were his words. Let's get to work now. So let's see if he actually means it, or if this was just all talk and all of it. Or it could also just be simply the players not buying in and not being able to get to that compete level. So we'll have to see what happens. Before we jump into the full recap and everything, leave a like on the video if you do enjoy. Subscribe if you guys are new, especially if you're Ranger fans, and turn on your notifications so you know when we upload or go live next on the channel. But it was definitely an interesting press conference. We didn't hear much from Drury, which kind of surprised me, considering the fact that we have not heard from Chris Drury since it's got to be since before last season, right? Because we didn't hear him during the exit interviews after the season, because we just assumed that, yeah, Gallant was going to go and we were going to wait and hear when the new coach came in. And that's exactly what happened. But we didn't even get much from Chris Drury. He introduced Laviolette. He just talked about, I mean, the amount that they talked about Laviolette's 12 games play as a Ranger. I'm sorry, it's cute and all. I know, I understand. He started his career here. It's kind of heartwarming, but quite frankly, to tell you the truth, I hate to be that guy. I don't give a rat's ass. I don't. And they talked about it way too much, his 12 games here in New York. And then with Dave Maloney, they continued to talk about it. It's like, okay, come on. We get it. We get the 12 games. It's cool and all, but let's go. Let's get into the meat and potatoes of the press conference, because they just dragged it out way too long and they talked about it way too much. But I digress. And now I'm talking about it way too long. But you had from the jump something that was interesting. Steve Valiquette talked about how they interviewed more than 8 candidates for the job. I like that. And I think that it was the right thing for Chris Drury to head into this thing and not be like, yeah, we're sold on one guy. We're going to do our due diligence. Apparently, it was Laviolette from the entire time. That's what Valley also said. But they wanted to interview guys just to do their due diligence. I think there's a little bit of I think that's a little bit of cap there. I think that there's certainly some lies there. I think that in reality, come on, we know you were waiting on the potential of Mike Sullivan getting fired, or maybe Joel Quenneville being reinstated by the league. There may have been potential there. I don't know. I'm just saying what my thought is, but apparently Laviolette was always the guy. They just interviewed other guys just to do their due diligence, which I like, because of the fact that you want to be able to, you want to do that for a job like this, where this team, you don't know where they are right now. You just don't know, because sure, you want them to compete for the Stanley Cup. Sure, that's where the goal should be, and that's where you would think they are. But at the same time, you got to develop Lafreniere and Kakko, and then it's just, after the way things ended this past season, it's just, you got to question a bit of, is this team a step back from where we think they are, or are they actually on the course of a Stanley Cup window here? So that remains to be seen. But I was always on board with bringing in the veteran guy because I wanted someone that knew the game. I wanted someone that has been around the block and that understands, and that, like Drury said in his opening remarks, that we could just kind of lead to there, his resume speaks for himself, or speaks for itself, and he commands respect. That's the main thing. He commands respect when he walks in the locker room. It's a guy that has been here, done that, and it's not going to be about it's not a rookie guy. It's not. Where with a rookie guy, it was a guy learning on the job. It was, is he going to command respect? Because to me, what was the incentive for the veterans to take a Spencer Carberry, for example, seriously, or a Jay Leach, who, by the way, openly admitted he wasn't ready for the Rangers gig? What was the incentive for the Rangers to go out and hire a guy like that? To me, it just didn't make sense one bit. So I'm very content with the fact that they went this route because of the fact that he commands respect, because of the fact that he's been around the game. So I'm very pleased with that aspect, and I'm happy that he was kind of the guy all along. And the John Hines thing, it was just doing their due diligence. So I'm happy about that. And then, yeah, Laviolette was just, he came up to the podium, talked about his 12 games played at nauseum. And again, we get it. And then they brought out his number 39 jersey. Yeah, it's cute and all, but let's just get on to the press conference. But so I marked down a couple of eye-opening quotes that we could get from this press conference. The first one, I paraphrased a bit here. This wasn't exactly the quotes, but he says, we want to be able to adjust, but there is also needing to be able to get an identity. However, an opponent or score of the game could dictate the way we play a game, which, again, I talked about at nauseum. Nico has talked about ad nauseum. C-Jets has talked about ad nauseum. We all did on the podcast how it's great in all the adjustments. It's great in all that there's a system here, but it does worry me a bit that it's not a set system. It's not a, we're going to play like this night in and night out. Yes, there needs to be adjustments. Yes, there needs to be all that, which I do like, but based on the opponent, based on the score of the game, that kind of worries me a bit, because as we saw with AV, if they had a lead, they would try too hard to protect said lead and it wouldn't go well. But let's hope that doesn't end up being the case here. But again, I do like the flexibility of being able to adjust. And as long as there is, for the most part, an identity on a night-to-night basis, we're happy here, because quite frankly, with Gerard Gallant, it was, again, go out there and have fun. Go out there and play like it was peewee hockey out there. And it just wasn't serious. It wasn't. And I talked about how I felt Gerard Gallant is a fraud. So we won't talk too much more about him. But again, having an identity, love it. And it seemed like he preached that identity being, we're going to be a team that has a high compete level, which that's something that would be an upgrade too over what we just saw from Gerard Gallant, because the compete level was non-existent under Gerard Gallant. There was just periods off, starting games late, leaving games early. Like, no. You got to be able to play the full 60. You got to go in there and play from puck drop. You can't just pack your bags early. You can't show up late. You got to be ready from puck drop to the final horn. And it seemed like Laviolette preached that. But again, he could preach it all he wants. It's a matter of executing and the players executing, which remains to be seen. But again, I'm very happy that he is open to the ability to adjusting mid-game, the ability to adjusting on the fly. Just all of that is absolutely huge, especially come playoff time, because the New Jersey Devils made an adjustment, and what did the New York Rangers do? They sat on their hands and didn't make a single adjustment. They didn't do a single thing in the compete level. It felt like just died as the playoff series went along. I mean, forget about it. After games 1 and 2, there was just no compete whatsoever. They had a good game 6. I get it, but in reality, I mean, come on. But the next bit, I kind of paraphrased in my own way and then took what Vince said on Twitter from the exact quote, because I wanted to have two different things. But the next takeaway I had was when he was saying, we need to play good defense. It's a priority to winning. but attacking, competing, grit and grind is what makes teams great. We want an aggressive approach. And then the way Vince phrased it, which is kind of more along the lines how it was actually phrased, there has to be a clear-cut plan on what we're doing. For me, it's always been a little more of an aggressive approach. Defense is always a priority for me, but it's also about the attack. It's about pressuring. It's about puck pursuit. So that's kind of more into what the identity and what the systematic type of play is going to be from Laviolette. I am glad to hear that he cares about defense. He cares about defense because we just didn't see enough of the defensive effort on a night-to-night basis. Will we actually see it? Again, this is just words right now. Let's see if they could go out and execute it. But it's nice to hear that they're going to care about defense. It's nice to hear that the forecheck is hopefully going to be there and that they are going to attack. And then I love the grit and grind. The grind especially is what makes a team great. Grinding it out on a night-to-night basis, grinding it out from start to finish in a game, that is what is key to making a good team. And that was a breath of fresh air because that is just the damn truth in this league. You have to be able to commit to the grind. And he preached it too about, in his next quote, competing and work ethic has to be practiced and started from training camp. That's how the Final Four got to where they did. We want an identity. It's competing. And I couldn't agree more. I couldn't agree more that obviously you have to compete. Obviously that. But it's mostly that you have to commit to the grind thing that really sold me here, that Laviolette knows what he's doing and that he is going to have them prepared at the very least, or he's going to try to have them prepared at the very least, because again, that is how the Final Four got there. Look at the Florida Panthers, how much they developed as a group, which is another thing Laviolette talked about, is you got to be able to work together as a group and be all tight-knit and everything. And it can't just be this guy's buddy with the other. Like, you know, you get your Kreider and Mika buddy, your Fox and Lindgren buddy. No, it's got to be a collective thing here. And they have to compete as a 23-man unit, which was nice to hear yet again, like I said. But yeah, I couldn't agree more that you got to be able to commit to that grind, because the Florida Panthers, look at how they committed to the grind the second they got into the postseason. The Vegas Golden Knights, same sort of deal. It just, you got to be able to have that that level of urgency and that compete level, and that's what separates teams. That is, the systems can only get you so far, but you got to have good systems, but then you also have to have that ability to compete. And you got to have the heart. You got to have the care. You have to have all of that to go out there and play, because that's just what separates that. Look at the teams that the Rangers had. Look at how much heart and care they had that went on those deep runs. I'm just saying. And then he talked about how he reached out to players. He met Fox in person today. Good to know that he's reaching out to the players, I guess. Sure. But he was talking about then, which was the quote that every single person and everyone and their mother went ballistic about, and is all, yeah, I'm sold now on Laviolette. That's what everyone's talking about on Twitter, how he talked about you need a good mix of youth and vets, which I couldn't agree more. You need to be able to have a good mix of guys there. And then he said the young players need opportunities to be counted on. It's not going to be given the opportunities, but they also need to get them, which was a little bit of a confusing quote to me, but that was just the way that he basically said it. He was like, yeah, you need to give them opportunities, but they're not going to be given it, which pretty much I think what he means by that is that they're not going to necessarily just get the opportunity because they got to earn this opportunity, but they are going to, they're probably going to get it from the start, which again, I like. So that makes it interesting, because you would assume that the way that the roster is going to be constructed in the offseason is, yeah, the plan is going to be Lafreniere, Kakko, Hedl, maybe Hedl, I don't know, just because of Trocheck, but Lafreniere and Kakko should definitely be in the top 6 next season, which, again, it's one thing to say, it's another thing to do, because we can't just be like, oh, he said it, because we flashback, rewind the tape to Gerard Gallant's opening press conference where the green screen was all messed up and half of his face wasn't even showing in it. But regardless, where he was talking about, yeah, you need to give them top 6 minutes. You can't just bury them and not give them power play time. They need the opportunity to grow. Again, it's another thing to see Laviolette actually do it and to actually show that he's going to. So I'm happy to hear that he wants to give the younger guys ice time and that he wants to go out there and let them get some good opportunities and give them minutes. But again, it's a matter of doing it, and it's a matter at the end of the day of the players executing when they get the opportunity. If Lafreniere is not playing to par in the top 6, yeah, you got to go out of the top 6. If Kakko's not producing in the top 6, yeah, you got to get out of the top 6. So we'll see. And then again, it's even a question if Lafreniere or Kakko is going to be kicking around next season. More so Lafreniere, I wonder if he gets moved. And then Steve Valiquette, after the press conference, talked about how Laviolette pushes for playoff behavior from day one, which, again, another breath of fresh air because of the fact that it felt like Gallant had his team prepared one way for the regular season and then another way for the playoffs. And no, you got to have a consistent effort from day one, and you got to establish that identity from day one, because look at who just won the Stanley Cup. You think Bruce Cassidy went in there and had them playing a different style of game from the start of the regular season to the playoffs? No, you got to be able to have that consistency throughout a full 82 game season plus playoffs. You have to be able to do that. Rod Brind'Amour is another coach where the Canes got to the Final Four. You got to be able to see. You just have to be able to have that identity from day one, and you got to have that consistency from day one. So that was nice to hear as well, because again, with Gallant, it felt like regular season was a different thing from the playoffs, and the team played differently, and they just didn't know how to handle it. So I like that he wanted a established system, and a way of playing from day one. So we'll have to wait and see if they execute, because again, that's a whole different thing, and that's a whole different conversation if they will. But from what we heard, I really like it. I really like what we heard, and I think that there's a lot more optimism to be had than we had even just a week ago when they announced the hiring, even just yesterday before we heard Laviolette talk. I think that there's a lot more optimism, at least from me personally. But I was starting to sell myself, just diving more into how Nashville was and everything, because Washington, I don't take much stock into how that went, because you had a 36 plus year old, now 38-year-old Alexander Ovechkin and what surrounding him in Washington. So, and he still kept that team competitive, brought them to the playoffs, except for this past year, but was close to the playoffs. So I think there's a lot of optimism to be had here than we had before. But again, it's a matter of execution. I'm not saying that I'm ready to book the parade and this is going to be no doubt the guy that leads the Rangers to the Cup. I have to see it for myself. And I think we all need to just have that as our main takeaway as a fan base, is we can't be 100% sold, but we can't also be pessimistic completely and be unsold of Laviolette. Let's wait and see what's done. Let's wait and see what's done. But also a side note, he talked about not rounding out the coaching staff yet, but there are rumors at the very least, and it's looking like they hired Mike Peca to be an assistant coach. So if you're not familiar with what he's done as a coach in the league, he apparently was Washington's taxi squad coach or whatever during the bubble year. And then he went to Buffalo, and in Buffalo, he has been the assistant coach in Rochester for the AHL affiliate for the Buffalo Sabres, help guys like Peterka develop, help guys like Jack Quinn develop. So that is a promising thing. And I love the hire personally for many reasons. Everybody was foaming at the mouth for a rookie head coach to come in here. Well, you get a guy who could be an assistant coach, and you have two positive light things here. You get a guy who's going to be able to reach out and understand the young players, maybe give Lafreniere and Kakko power play time. Maybe that's what Peca is going to do, because I think he's going to be the power play coach, and he's going to be that guy, because I think that Laviolette's going to want to bring in the other guy. I forgot his name exactly for the defense. You guys can remind me in the comments, but I'm pretty sure he's going to be manning the power play. and special teams like that. So I'm sold on this, because the other positive thing, you have a guy as an assistant coach, you have a guy that is learning on the job for the most part, as the he's here and could be groomed as the next head coach. He could be. So you have two good things about that there, which you could take away. And I absolutely love that you could groom him potentially as the next head coach of this team. If you're not sold on Knobloch, now you have options there if Peca ends up being a great assistant coach. And then another thing that I want to read from Johnny Lazarus, who said he spoke to a good friend of his that played under Peca for the Rochester Americans this past season. He said Peca's details and habits went a long way to develop younger guys like Quinn and Peterka. He might be exactly what Lafreniere needs to unlock his potential. So if you're not sold, maybe that sold you. If you're still not sold, I don't know what to tell you, because to me, it makes sense to bring in a younger, fresh mind as the power play guy, because again, maybe he will get Lafreniere and Kakko those opportunities, but remains to be seen. But let me know your thoughts and takeaways from the press conference. Am I being overly optimistic from what we heard? I don't think I'm being overly optimistic. I think I'm being cautiously optimistic here, because again, I want to see them go out on the ice and execute. That's what matters most to me. Actions speak louder than words. So it remains to be seen. Let me know your thoughts, though. Are you guys more sold on Laviolette? Are you guys more unsold? I don't know how you could be after that press conference, but are you guys more unsold? Are you cautiously optimistic like I am, where you're in the middle here, where it's like, yeah, I'm not 100% sold, but also let's give the guy a chance and let's see what happens here. Let me know all your thoughts in the comment section down below. Thank you guys so much for watching. Leave a like if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you guys are new, especially if you're Ranger fans. Turn on your notifications so you know when we upload or go live next. And I will see you in the next one. Let's go, Rangers.